name's Kyle Strickland. I'm a political science major, third year. I'm currently a project coordinator on Government Relations Committee.
I'm Nick Parker. I'm a political science and sociology major, fourth year, and I'm currently the policy and governance chair, the undergraduate student government senate.
All right, so the biggest thing about the Kyle and Nick 2012 campaign is that we have a platform points that's drawn off the Buckeye Blueprint. And what that's all about is making sure that students are hold their government leaders accountable at student government level. So the main goal is to make sure safety, off-campus safety especially, the career success and community living is as top priority as possible. So the focus on off-campus safety would be a comprehensive expansion of student safety services, especially comprehensive expansion of the sexual violence policy that was voted in last year. We will make sure we can really take that home this next year under our administration. And the biggest thing with off-campus living, we want to make sure that we can actually have increased cabs routes off campus, improve weekend service hours to kind of build that sense of community. And ultimately, it's really about making student government relevant to everyday students and reaching out to everyone and building the Buckeye community. Something we can do is we can tackle the fees, and we can also tackle where is this money going. And that's one of the biggest things. When you have $3,500+ that students are paying in fees, we want to look at these fees and say, where's our money going, making sure it's going into the right places and the proper places, make sure that students are actually putting their money into resources that are benefiting these students. It's a huge concern for us, but the biggest thing is letting students know that student government can actually do something about it. They can't do vast changes and say, you know what, we're going to lower tuition and that's that. But what we can do is actually bring this issue to the table, bring it to the administration will do something about it. That's the biggest thing, is just bringing things to the table, and that's what we're going to do.
Kyle and I both have government relations experience in advocating for students when it comes to high tuition as well. So even though we can't physically lower it, we can do things to help prevent it from increasing as high in the future. As well as with fees, that's something that's very important to us. We both know the value of having to work to fund your college education. I think we're going to bring that experience to the table as vice president and president.
Yeah, and the biggest thing about tuition and fees is the fact that we can say, look, let's save money in other areas. If we're going to have to pay high tuition, higher textbook costs, let's save money in other areas. Let's expand undergraduate student government's Buckeye Book Swap program and have students set fair textbook pricing. But the only way that's going to work if more students know about it, more students know about student government. And this past, or a couple months ago, with the Government Relations Committee and several other members, I actually went down to Washington, D.C. and spoke to Ohio delegation about making sure the federal Pell Grant stays at the maximum level of $5,550 and ensuring that student interest rates don't double, because that's what's going to happen in July. And so we need to make sure that students know about this. They have to advocate to their leaders, they have to make phone calls to Congress, they have to tell their leaders that they don't want to see these interest rates double.
Foremost, we are fully against privatization of the parking garages. That's something that's going to be a huge burden to students going forward. That's something that we're going to fight. That's something that USG can tackle. That's an issue that we have the authority to look into. We can go to the administration and say, this is a student concern. And that's what Kyle and Nick are going to do next year.
Yeah, and with that said, it's an issue where you almost feel powerless. A lot of times, student government leaders and trying to do something about such a huge issue that's going to affect so many students for years to come. But the fact is, what we do appreciate is that administration is willing to listen to us. And literally, I cannot tell voters enough, I cannot tell students enough that if they bond together, they get around an issue, and you bring it to the table, then you can actually have your student government leaders not only listen to you, but also the university administration. Everyone has a freedom of speech, and I'm definitely for that, and I think Nick Parker's for that. I think all the candidates in this race are for that. The freedom of speech, we understand that, and I want to respect that. I want to make sure that people continually are allowed the freedom of speech. But what I don't want to see is instances such as what was a couple months ago in the Lantern, where you had an article with someone who was kind of denouncing the Muslim Student Association and the past presidents, and that's unacceptable. Basically, we have a campus of 50,000 students. There's going to be diverse ideas, diverse opinions, but when a Lantern article like that is mentioned, where you have someone denouncing MSA leaders in the past and talking about how they could be terrorists or things like that. That's hurtful, that's disrespectful, and it's the freedom of speech, that's one thing, but should that be going in a lantern ad? You know, that's the difference. And so I'm glad that Dr. Jay brought that to attention. Haroon Dada, president of MSA, and Bilal Bajwa, he made sure, also on Senate of Student Government, and Shams Malik, he made sure, and they made sure that, you know, this is unacceptable. And this brings everyone in, whatever background you're from, talking about how you can't just do this and just expect no one to react. Freedom of speech is a big thing. We want to keep that, but it's one thing in putting something where we're paying for that for everyone to read. We don't want to see that.
I think it's one thing to have an opinion and another to make somebody, a student at Ohio State University, feel so insecure that they can't function in their daily lives, and that's what we're really about. We don't want students feeling that they can't express themselves freely without somebody having an ad in our own student newspaper that's denouncing what they're doing when they're not doing anything wrong. And I think that that's especially what was wrong with the situation with the anti-Muslim ad in the Lantern. And I'm happy to say that I was a co-sponsor of legislation denouncing it, and we've worked with Haroon in the past. We've worked with Haroon now on this issue, and I think that it's something that is a student concern, and we will fight for students on this issue.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is that we're glad is the Lantern took care of it, the administration took care of it, they handled the issue. We'll make sure that doesn't happen again. So that they did a great job on that front. And that's another example of taking an issue, bringing it to the table, making more students aware about it, and something gets done.
For me, the biggest challenge to overcome this year in USG was the move from the executive branch to the legislative. This is purely an issue for those that are in the organization. They might know what I'm talking about. I spent 3 years advocating directly for students and moved into a body that was purely legislative. I tackled the challenge, though, I think pretty effectively. I really started to get my stride fall quarter advocating for students, and I really think that the Senate is where a lot of the power in USG lies. I'm glad that there are over 200 students running for Senate positions ranging from North Campus, Off Campus, South Campus, and academic majors as well. I think that the Senate's a great thing for students to get involved in. We're hoping that we have a vibrant Senate to look forward to speaking with next year, and that they bring all student issues to the table. And
my biggest challenge, would say, is just adjusting to a new administration, new process. I've been in student government for 3 years, and you always have to kind of adjust that transition to a completely new administration, new senators, new members coming in. But 8 months forward, what happens is you work together. You kind of set aside your differences and kind of just work on specific policy points, especially in the Government Relations Committee. It's not really about the administration. It's really about saying, look, we got to hammer home these issues. We've got to focus on how we advocate for students. So it's all about putting the egos away and making sure we focus on the issues. That's the biggest challenge. Well, the biggest challenge I see the university facing this coming year is obviously, I think, the switch to semesters. That's huge. That's affect students not only academically, but also student order meetings, sports, athletics, tickets, and making sure we have enough tickets for students for the football games, basketball games, and that's going to be a huge transition. And also making sure the advisors are well aware and knowing to help students out on their transition to semesters, making sure that students graduate on time. Our goal to help the university out and the administration out is to make sure that we're with them step by step. We have a dialogue. We're promoting MySwitch. We're making sure that students have a clear guide to the semester conversion, and realizing that it's not going to be easy, it's not going to be perfect, it's not going to be the smoothest transition, but we can help make this transition as smooth as possible. And I'm confident that we'll do so, and the university will.
So, me personally, I think one of the big issues facing this university is going to be safety. I think that there are a lot of safety issues that need tackled, and I'm ready to look forward to talking with the administration to see what we can do about it and really working for students. I think that the Kyle and Nick team, we have 7 years of experience in the organization. We've seen what works with USG, and we've seen where USG struggles. And one of the things that USG struggles with is relevance to students. And I think that Kyle and Nick are a very approachable team. We've picked 46 strong senators that are going to help us, and I think that our message will really resonate with students, that they're going to see that we're working to build the Buckeye community, that we've been doing it for years in USG, and we want to bring that to the president and vice president.
And the biggest thing is, the voting days are April 12th and April 13th at votekyleandnick.com. But what I'm telling every single student I talk to, every single student organization I go to, is that you have to hold your student government leaders accountable. So we can't just walk into these student org meetings, or we can't just talk to students and just get their vote and leave and then have someone do the same thing next April. we have to make sure that not only are we winning this election, but we also focus on getting these issues done that we talk about. It's not about false promises. It's about making the changes happen, but that can only happen if we make student government relevant to students and students hold their student government leaders accountable. So vote KyleNick.com, April 12th and April 13th. Let's do this.